This broadcast will start in 30 seconds. This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to my show, Stockton United. I'm your host, Lance McCann, and today's guests are Stephanie Braithwaite. Man, that's a hard one.
It is.
And Deborah Spraja,
you got it.
Dang. They're with Lily Pad Living Recovery Residents. And today we're talking about women in recovery, transitional housing, and homelessness, and human trafficking. So it's going to be a deep show, ladies and gentlemen. So stick in, ask questions if you have them, and I'll try to get them answered as quickly as possible. So let's dive into this. So there's a huge crisis with homelessness and all this stuff. What was your mission's a little different. You want to share that mission statement before we get started?
Sure. So our mission essentially is to provide an affordable and accommodating home environment for women and children in recovery. So right now we have 2 residences, one specifically for women, and then specifically for women and their children who reside with them. Beyond that, we provide the structure, stability, and safety that they need to be able to focus on their recovery, to be able to rebuild their lives, foster new growth, and rebuild the relationships, establish new life skills, establish healthy coping mechanisms so they can be ultimately self-sufficient and independently live in the future.
I think, especially nowadays. And we'll get into that a little bit here more. But what was your reasoning behind this? What was your moment? Because we all have this, I call it a hero's journey. You know, we always have that moment that defines us, or the moment that goes, okay, I need to push forward. I need to do something. I can't sit by and wait any longer. So what was your hero's journey like? You both have one, so.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
They're interconnected.
Yeah, yes.
Our hero's journey is interconnected. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a recovering addict. I struggled as an incest survivor. I was a victim, and now I'm a survivor of sexual abuse as a child. That led to poor life decisions. I didn't have support. I didn't have family that was willing to support me in healing from that abuse. Mm-hmm. It led to me making some bad decisions and ultimately ending up in the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, I had children. This is my beautiful daughter, and I do have other children as well. And they were in a system where Child Protective Service was involved. They were taken from me. They were removed from me. They were separated from each other. It was
that was the hardest part, is not being separated from each other.
Yeah. They were separated from each other. It was very disheartening. It still is. I still deal with a lot of emotions from that. But I needed to find a way to heal. Mm-hmm. And I made a decision while I was in a treatment center. Stephanie.
How long ago was this?
This was in 2006.
Okay.
So in 2006.
How old were you, Stephanie?
Well, are you talking about when you were at Elder
My
House?
clean date was in 2006.
Okay. Yeah. So my mom got clean in 2006. We still did not have much contact. She was incarcerated off and on throughout my life, pretty much. We reunified when I was in 9th grade, so in 2009. Okay. Really fully when I moved to Stockton and was able to live with her. But just the year
So
prior.
you're still a teenager at that
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we had missed a lot of years together. But in 2008, so just the year before, my mom was at a treatment facility, residential treatment facility, and I was sexually assaulted.
Oh, wow.
And so that really started the journey, I know, for my mom to kind of choose her career path, which I know she can speak on. But that really catapulted it quite far for us.
Yeah, for me, being a victim of sexual assault and then seeing that it had happened to my child, I needed to immediately implement a plan to provide her the support and help that I wasn't given. And so I watched my child struggling. She had rape trauma syndrome. She was, there were days that I looked at her, she was having nightmares. There were days that I looked at her and I didn't even recognize her anymore. So I needed to find new
And when you
innovative.
say you didn't recognize her, what do you mean by that?
I didn't recognize the child that I once knew. She was depressed. She was
Okay.
had given up on life. She was traumatized. Her grades were failing. Things that abuse, that trauma creates, she was experiencing. And I myself had very little knowledge at that point on how to help her. And I made it my mission to help her and to provide her the support that I wasn't given as a child so that she didn't have to experience the same things I had experienced.
So what was your first step?
My first step was that I did some Google searching, and
Thank goodness for Google.
yes,
Right.
thank goodness for Google, and I found the RAIN organization, which is an organization that helps sexual assault survivors, and I did some additional research, and I decided that I was going to reach out to local law enforcement throughout our county. So we started with Tracy Police, we started with Ripon Police, we started with Stockton Police, and I created a project called the Teal Ribbon Project. And the Teal Ribbon Project, we tied teal ribbons together, just she and I, on every single law enforcement car throughout the county of San Joaquin to show support to other survivors. So not only would she not feel alone, and she wouldn't feel the loneliness that I had felt, but that she would also be able to actively be engaged in her own
Should be
recovery.
like a beacon for other people.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think through both of our traumas, we realized that part of healing comes from serving and helping others.
Definitely helps.
And it does, not only to not feel alone yourself, but there's something very empowering and fulfilling about knowing that you're giving back, and that you step outside of yourself to be empathetic.
Right.
And so from there, we started the Saving Stephanie organization dedicated to supporting sexual assault survivors. We did other projects beyond the Teal Ribbon Project, and we had some conversation briefly about, what would it look like to take this one step further, to be even better advocates.
How many conversations was that? 'Cause I can imagine
A lot.
A lot of late nights.
It was a lot,
staying
but
up like
I was still, a
a lot of
teenager,
sleepless
but
nights. I would
Yeah, she was
imagine.
15 years old, so we
Yeah.
weren't creating a real business plan yet.
But you get excited about something, you start thinking about it, and
Yeah.
the wheels start spinning, and you just
so we had thought
Push forward.
it would be amazing if one day we could open up a house, a sanctuary of some sort for women healing from trauma, where they could come together, where they could rebuild their lives, establish healthy relationships, find a family outside of their own, and create something beautiful. And like I said, I was only 15, so that kind of fell off. I went off to college, got married, and when we, kind of came back together, and I moved back to Stockton, or I guess a little bit before I had moved back to Stockton, we said, there's no better time than now.
Yeah.
And it's definitely transitioned from our original vision. We don't just serve, I suppose all of our women really are healing from trauma and abuse.
some type of
but
trauma. I mean,
92% of all of our women that are currently residing in our residence are victims of either sexual abuse and or domestic violence.
how many women do you have right now?
Currently, we have 27.
Wow.
between our 3 residences.
Yeah. So we have 27 currently, plus their children. So some of them have 1 child, some of them have 2 to 3.
That's a packed house right there.
It
Well,
is.
we have
we have
3.
multiple locations.
Still.
Yeah.
We have multiple locations.
Oh, you figure 9 adults and children. The wild house.
Yeah,
It
we
is.
we do, and honestly, the outpouring of support from the community of Stockton when we first started the Saving Stephanie organization was tremendous.
Excuse me 1 second. Christina Fugazi's watching. She
Hey,
said she's so proud of you. So I just had to figure I'd throw that in there.
Miss Fugazi was my high school teacher.
Yeah, that's what she was saying there.
Yes.
I just went and saw her get her sworn in last night, so that was
Yeah.
a pretty good moment for Stockton. Hello, Christina.
Well, we
Thank
love
you
her.
for watching.
We do.
Yes.
Christina Fugazi, actually, we give you a thumbs up. You are a huge supporter of us and our mission from day one, and we appreciate that very
I'm
much.
trying to get her to come on my show. You're gonna have to call it and we'll use one of those sick days, Christina.
That's right.
But back to the where we were. So, what kind of women do you take in? I mean, because yesterday in our pre-interview, you ladies do a lot for a lot of different women,
We do.
different situations. So, you want to share what your focus?
I'll share what my focus is.
Okay.
I am a licensed substance abuse counselor. I have almost 2 decades now of working in San Joaquin County at different agencies, from homeless shelters to residential treatment centers, from San Joaquin County Mental Health. So I already had that foundation. I'm licensed as a substance abuse counselor. I was case management for forensics and decriminalization, the AB 109 program. Worked with a lot of women in and out of jail to help reduce recidivism and find a way to keep them clean and
I
sober.
can never say that word.
Recidivism. Recidivism.
I can't say it because I have a cough drop in my mouth, but we all know what it means. We don't want them to go back. We want them to become productive members of our community and engage in that community and
Right.
find ways to do
That's the
that.
important part. I think that's. I had Sheriff Withrow on a few weeks ago, and he there's a program there when the guys leave when they're being ejected. essentially.
Ejected is a very appropriate term.
Right.
They get to go to this, if they qualify, they get to go to this other program where they get to learn a job skill and stuff, and so on and so forth. So, what is your role in the lily pad living?
Yeah, so I, as the facility director, kind of oversee all of our operations
So
and
you're
functions.
the boss of your mom?
Well, I'd say, I guess on
I'm
a
just kidding.
technical standpoint,
Yes.
yes, though we're a very good team.
Partner,
we
yeah.
work very collaboratively, really with all of the people within our team and support system. And
How many team members do you have?
unofficially, like 1 million, it seems like. Officially, we're just a trio. So
Okay.
we have one other staff member who's a house manager
Okay.
at our home for women and children. And so she really helps them to develop those life skills and those coping skills. She
It's
works with them on
important.
parenting and just really basic life skills, like how to open up a bank account, how to build a resume,
How to pay
go
your bills on
Yes.
time.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Things we take for, I mean, my parents weren't always the best at that either, but things that we've had to learn through the School of Hard Knocks, when you're in a traumatic situation, those things go to the wayside and you're just floundering, trying to figure out what to do.
Right. And many of the women that we have come from programs already. So they've completed residential treatment or they've done a program through like local homeless shelters. So they do have quite a bit of life skills. But to actually put those skills into practice, like they can tell you,
kick them out
oh,
of
to
the
do
nest.
this, I need to do X, Y, and Z. But for them to find the motivation, for them to have someone to hold them accountable once they don't have a program 24 hours a day with a ton of staff oversight can be difficult. So we essentially, and one of our main goals is to encourage them and inspire them to be motivated
Right.
themselves, to be self-motivators so they can be self-sufficient.
Nancy Lamb says she loves you, Deborah.
Love you too. I think one of the things too that I think that we is very important, and I'm going to give Stephanie huge props for this. I took my challenges in my life and I turned them into a career. Stephanie took her challenges in her life and she turned them into a career. She was a sexual assault counselor. She went in and did and stood by victims while they were, I mean, she'd have to tell that part of the story, but she went into juvenile halls and helped human trafficking victims. She worked with a rape crisis center. So she has that foundation that she also has. So she's very good at working with that population of people and helping them to overcome those traumas. and also has the ability to
At least showing them that there's a way. That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. People, I don't think, when you're in the tornado, you don't know the way out. You just are sometimes try to numb it with drugs, alcohol,
unhealthy behaviors, period.
multiple sexual partners trying to fill that void that was taken away. And so being that light is important.
I think too that one of the things for me, that going back to the residential treatment centers and the shelters and the programs that we currently have available in our county, they're all excellent, but they have a focus. And with the new drug Medi-Cal legislation that passed, now Medi-Cal pays for substance abuse treatment. Medi-Cal pays for those types of programs, and I say that because I worked there. They pay for mental health treatment, but you have to meet medical necessity. So when you have a woman that has established a long term of abstinence from substance use, or she's stabilized on medications, she's no longer in the depths of that depression. She no longer meets medical necessity. So therefore her services end.
Wow.
And then where does she go? And
So hence the name Lily
yes.
Pad.
And so, well, lily pad, the name lily pad came from two different places. One, of course, a lily pad, as we all know, is a stepping stone.
Right.
But it also creates a flower that is the only flower that grows in adversity, with its tangled webs underneath it and its tangled root systems and in mud, and creates a beautiful flower.
I was going to ask you what the symbolism behind that is.
Well, that's what it is.
That's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
We put a lot of thought into that name.
Yes, we did.
So how'd you come up with that name? Like, what was it? I mean,
We went back and forth for a long time. We wanted something to be relevant to our mission, symbolic of our mission, the journeys that we've endured and have been exposed to, the journeys that ultimately the residents we would come in contact with have likely endured. And so the lily pad, excuse me, obviously is a place of refuge and a safe haven for frogs or insects or whatever to just have a moment of rest and refuge where they can heal before they transition and move on. And actually on the bottom of the lily pad is a really intricate foundation of like just hundreds of roots and branches. So actually when we were looking up like the lotus or lily pad, you know, we wanted like an animal or, you know, something that would be symbolic, that would also work for a logo or, you know, like all of those things come into play.
I was looking at this morning, I was like,
yeah.
So that was when I was writing out my questions, I was like, I gotta ask that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So one of my friends, Taylor Kozik, she was like, she's gonna be a guest on my show. She said that she's a survivor, and she's also a great candle maker. And she said something about maybe doing a workshop with some of the girls to teach them how to.
That would be amazing.
So I'll connect you two together.
Please do.
We welcome that.
Yeah.
And actually that's another component of our program that we do focus on is teaching them not just life skills, but how to practice self-care. And so one of the things that we've implemented with New School Aikido and with Gracie Combatives, that's at UOP right now, is that we do take them to self-defense classes. We teach them to be empowered. We teach them that if they have been victimized in the past, they don't have to live in that fear anymore. We reach out and find different factors to encourage them to build not just social support in a 12-step community or not just social support in a religious organization, but social support throughout our community in different things, in different ways, so that they can find out who they are and who they could become. And that was part of my journey, and we have a great group of girls right now that's doing jiu-jitsu, that's doing Gracie Combatives. And if you speak to them, they'll tell you it's changed their lives.
I'll make you tap.
Yes.
Yeah, they definitely have built up some confidence.
They have definitely built up some confidence.
Yeah.
Yes.
I used to train MMA years ago, and it's definitely empowering. It humbles you to the sense that when somebody's looking at you crazy, you just go, you don't even know.
Right.
I'll choke you out. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's good.
Yeah.
Those are some good. It all goes back to those life skills.
Right.
Because I see women, young girls having children who don't have the life skills, and then it's like it's a constant cycle. So you're the missing link to that component.
Right.
We'd like to believe that we are.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think for a lot of women too, they don't really know who they are. They've been essentially institutionalized, abused their entire lives. Many of them, if you hear their stories, were never provided an opportunity to even be kids, to play sports, to build hobbies, to enjoy the school experience.
And see, those are the things.
To go to college, to do those types of things. And so, like candle making, I'd imagine that's very therapeutic, but many of those women are never even given an opportunity to like take up a new hobby or to have someone support them and say like, hey, we're going to watch your kids so you can go take care of yourself.
So you can go be a kid a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can go do something that you enjoy that's beyond
important.
just
It's like
focusing on recovery.
Jasmine Leak is asking, are you taking the women to the Women's March?
We sure are. We'll see you there Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I'll have to plan, maybe take my daughter out there.
Yes.
Yep. We'll be there.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing. So what were some of your challenges that I'm sure there had to be quite a few. So
In creating Lily Pad Living,
yes.
personal.
well,
Probably
the personal,
both.
you can go back
Yeah.
and forth. I mean, it all, like you said, it's connected with under the lily pad, all the roots.
Yeah.
It's all forms.
I would say in the beginning for us, the most difficult part was we had invested some of our own money that we had saved. We found a business partner, so we had a property provided to us. So we had a really unique opportunity in that regard where we didn't have to come up with that type of stuff. But these women, I don't think we expected, or maybe we just wanted to, I don't know, pretend we had it all together. But as more and more women started coming in, we realized we really didn't have the amount of things that we actually needed. So many
Like?
of the women were coming in with no bedding, no clothing, no hygiene products. They literally fled in the middle of the night, found our phone number in the morning, left a domestic violence situation,
Wow, can you imagine leaving?
had already, maxed out their time at the domestic violence shelter, didn't want to go to local homeless shelters because their abuser could find them there. It's not a confidential location. Ours is not a confidential location either, but
However,
at least they believed they had a chance of safety and refuge there. So to be able to say, oh my goodness, now this person has come in and they don't have the money to go out and buy all of those things, we have to come up with it and quickly. And so when you start having one woman and then the next day 3 women and then the next day 4
little
women.
simple things that you just take for granted.
Right, that you don't even think of. And it's, honestly, a quick trip back to our houses to find some bedding or a quick trip to the dollar store to get some hygiene products. But when you already have so many other things going on and so many other people to try to manage and oversee, it can become overwhelming. So we've definitely received a lot of donations for
Tammy
those
Marsh
things.
says she's donated to you. Do you know Tammy?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Tammy.
What's up,
Yeah.
Tammy?
So we thankfully have had quite a few people step up and drop off like bags and bags of, even when like they go to hotels, they come back from vacation, they're like, look, I got you 42 shampoos. And we're like,
wow.
yes.
You're like, I had no idea.
Right, but seriously, like when we go and we stay at a hotel, we're like, get all the shampoos, like all the girls at Lily Pad need this. So I would say that was difficult to really come to terms with how much we would need to rely on the community. And the community has definitely stepped up, and we'll need to continue to have that support if we want to be able to provide the services.
Well, we could touch on that
Yeah.
anyway before we close out, how people in the community can help you.
I
I
think
think that's important.
I think one of the things for me too is that when women come out of a domestic violence situation or a human trafficking situation or whatever their challenge was, whether it was jail, whether it was substance use, they have lost their dignity. They feel stigmatized by our community. They feel ashamed. They feel bad. And
But even those, but that's self-inflicted.
oh yeah,
most
absolutely,
times.
it's self-inflicted, but we still have to get them past that.
Right.
And so when they come to a place, we want them to have a certain sense of dignity. We want them to feel like they are a part of humankind. We want them to feel like if they're going out on a job, which we do require all of our residents to have vocational goals or educational goals. And we don't teach them to go to the adult school. We show them UOP, and we say, this is what you can accomplish. There's some steps before it, but this is what you can accomplish. And
that's
they,
important, I think.
It
Showing
is.
them the big picture.
Show them the big picture, right? Let's not show them what we think they deserve or all they can accomplish, but let's show them what they really could have if they really invested the time and the energy in themselves and in their families. And having that dignity to be able to have a clean outfit on, or having the dignity to be able to have hygiene products to properly take a shower when you go to a job interview, or have a lip gloss. Those are huge things to them, and they're real barriers.
Yeah.
You know, they don't feel confident enough to walk in to even get a job at McDonald's because they haven't been able to wash their hair. And so those were some of the challenges we had where we're saying,
I mean, obviously, like,
right,
you know, it's the parent, but those are the, you know, I wouldn't even think that lip gloss would change somebody's attitude.
It absolutely does.
You know.
Well, I think it's so easy for many of us to become lost in that idea, or to not necessarily intentionally turn the other way or turn a blind eye, but I think that oftentimes we are just so privileged to have the things that we do that we lose sight, unless we're working with this type of person or these populations of people. You're really not forced to look at it and think, what do they need to feel supported and loved, and what will they need to be successful? And something literally as simple as a chapstick and a new outfit literally can change their lives.
Nancy posted this gentleman, he took his life, I guess, the other day, and I was reading his story about the cycle of, it's like the chicken, you're constantly in the chicken or the egg, which one came first. He's like reliving this whole thing, like, I can't get a job because I can't take a shower. I can't take a shower because I don't have a job.
Yep.
And I'm just like, man, that's.
I call it a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
You know, the same thing with getting IDs. I can't get a driver's license I can't get an ID to get a job, but I have to have this much money to get the ID to get the job, and I can't get the ID unless I get a job, and so they literally can't get a job because they don't have an ID. And so
how much is an ID?
$31 now.
Is it $31?
Well, that's for a driver's license. I don't know. I haven't gotten an ID in a long time. I mean, there are vouchers.
I don't allow you to drive.
I do drive. There are vouchers. There are certain resources, but it's difficult for them. I mean, it really, truly is.
And many of them aren't familiar with those resources until we sit down and say, what are the hurdles you're facing? And they're like, I can't get an ID. And we're like, oh, well, there's a voucher for that. Or, hey, let's fundraise. Let's, get you to do this. Or, but sometimes that disconnect is there. And so they don't really know until they have someone to help them.
Right.
We actually had a young girl who, I tell her story because it's probably one of the ones that affected Stephanie and I the most in the last month. She was 21. She's 21 years old. Her parents are both in prison for substance use. She was separated from her siblings. She came forward to a school teacher several years ago and disclosed the abuse that was going on in her home. She was the primary caretaker for her children. She, or for the siblings. Okay. She would bring them food and things like that because her parents would leave them for weeks on end.
Wow.
And so when CPS
where would they go? On the streets or?
Parents were out using drugs.
Okay.
She was the oldest. She was 16 years old. And she was about to graduate high school and planned on going to nursing school. When CPS was called by the school, she was afraid that the siblings weren't going to get picked up and they were going to be left and they were going to be hungry that night. So she fled. The children have all been adopted out. Her parents are in prison. She has no one anymore. And yesterday I had to teach her how to turn on a coffee pot.
Wow.
She literally did not know how to use a coffee pot. And she was so sweet and so humble about it, but it's things that the rest of us take for, granted that she really just doesn't have the skill set to do. And it's really heart-wrenching to do that work, but there is a disconnect. As a community member, I am today in law school so that I can continue to advocate and fight for these women and getting services and things like that on a little different arena as well.
Because I would imagine some of them need some
there's
help
there's
with their
legal
background.
support. It's not. I'm not doing criminal defense. I think that there are some things that we as a society need to look at on how we're providing our rehabilitation services, what we're doing. If you put somebody in a rehabilitation program, but during that 6 months you don't allow them to job search, or you don't allow them to have a cell phone, or you don't allow them to have those skills that we need to have once you leave, and then they're ejected. I think that was a great word that you used.
Well, based on our conversation yesterday, that's what it felt like. I'm like,
no,
man.
it is.
Because you program up until the 6 month mark, and then the last day they're like, okay, you need to get your stuff together because tomorrow you're leaving.
Right.
So where do you go? You're essentially homeless overnight, instantly.
And many of them have children in their custody, so that obviously creates an extra obstacle because they can't just, or hopefully not, go sleep in a car
so you guys
on the
provide
streets.
Daycare and all that stuff.
We don't provide daycare, but we
okay.
do help them access resources like family resource and referral where they can
Creative child care. We do link them to Child Abuse Prevention Council for respite care, depending on the situation, so that they can. We also are strong advocates of education. So we do help them get through the financial aid process. We help them get through the GED. We help them get through whatever it is they need to get through so that they can move forward with getting the education that they need to be self-reliant. It's actually one of our requirements to be in our facility, is that they are either doing volunteer work in the community, a minimum of 20 hours per month, and that's a minimum. We require actually quite a bit more. Usually for most of them, we do require that they are actively seeking employment if they are employable, or they are actively seeking a higher education to get employment. We also do have a real disconnect in our community right now where we have women's shelters. They're great shelters. The Gospel Center Rescue Mission, Haven of Peace. These are great shelters. I have nothing bad to say about them. Unfortunately, they have limited bed space as well, limited staffing as well. And they don't take children over a certain age. So you still have women that have children that are over 10 years old. Well, where are they supposed to go? As a parent, would I leave my 10-year-old or would I sleep in my car?
Sleep in my car.
I'd sleep in my car, and I'd continue to, and my children are without electricity, without running water. Like, those are things that Stephanie and I are looking at collaboratively. How do we help these people?
So what is your age limit for your children?
8 years old. So we are bound by many of the same liability structures and insurance issues.
Okay. I was going to ask you, what is that? Where is it?
And that's what makes it difficult.
And why is that? Why is it?
Insurance.
But what is their
I think there's the
behind it?
assumption, and in many regards this is sometimes an accurate assumption, is that when children have been exposed to so much trauma, whether it be domestic violence, sexual abuse, they're at a heightened risk to becoming perpetrators.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I just was trying to make sure I was on the right process.
Right. So I think, again, that's the perception from most insurance companies is that it's the extra liability to have older children.
And they run tons of studies and numbers on that, so it's
And
probably pretty accurate.
It is really accurate, but like in my personal situation, Stephanie's the youngest of my biological children. I now have other children that I've adopted and have helped, and we have taken into our home. But my son was not reunified with me because I didn't have a place where I could bring him. And that was very hard because, again, even though I was clean and sober and I was doing everything I was needing to do, I could take her back, but I couldn't take my other two children back. Wow. And as a mother, as a parent,
guilt right there.
Yeah, it's terrible. Plus the other children feel like, oh, mom wants her, but mom doesn't want the rest of us. That's not true. Mom wants you all, but mom can't figure it out.
Yeah.
So we are looking at ways to work that out. We're also looking at ways to accommodate currently New Directions, great program. New Directions works with Child Protective Services to help men reunify with their children. But when they're done with that program, there's no shelters for men so they can have their children. So if the biological mom of the children doesn't get it together and she is no longer has services for the children, but the father can.
I think that's super important because a lot of men kind of get the short end of the stick there because especially, I guess, in across the country, it's always perceived that the woman is always the best option for the child, and that's not always true.
No.
Whoever's going to be the best parent should be the goal.
Right. So we'd like to be able to afford men the same opportunity to live in a recovery residence, to be able to have their children, and going back to the, difficulty when it comes to the age restriction. Our eventual goal is to, and this is a few years from now, of course, but purchase an apartment complex where we do not have an age restriction. So they can have their own apartment unit and have whatever children they have been reunified with at whatever age.
You do know I'm a real estate agent, right?
Yes,
So-
we do.
Right, so I'm looking at you, Lance. Like, eventually.
My buddy Sam, when he's saying hello, when I met him, he was a single dad, and he was kind of in a bad situation with his girlfriend. She was very abusive towards him, not physically but mentally, and so he was kind of stuck. And one day he's like, "I'm leaving, bro." I go, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I don't know, but I need to. She's gonna go to work. I'm gonna take my stuff. I'm gonna put it in your house, and then I'm gonna come out and get it, and I'm gonna take off to LA or go back home or figure something out." And we were going to Delta together. I'm like, "All right, bro, whatever you need, man." And so he dropped off all this stuff, packed it in his little Honda Accord, and took off and hit the road. And now he's a truck driver for UPS, and he's got his boy back, and he's doing
great.
good for himself.
Good for you, Sam.
So
We believe in you.
I think
Yeah,
it'll
he's
be-
right. Men need help too.
Men
Yeah.
need help too, and we believe men are good fathers. Men have as long as they're doing what they need to be doing, they have the
But like women, sometimes they don't have the parenting skills.
Oh.
A friend of mine, he's a veteran and he's going through PTSD, and we had breakfast the other day, and I was like, he was I want to get a job because he's fully disabled. I go, "Why? How old's your daughter?" He was like 6. I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna be missing out on some of the best times of your life right now if you want to go work. Spend the time with your daughter. Develop her." That's my theory. I don't raise my children. I develop them.
Yep, I believe that
Develop
too.
your daughter. I go, read to her. You pick her up and grab a book and read. And so he sent me a picture of them reading, and today he told me, he goes, "Yeah, she cried because she didn't want to go to school today." I'm like, "Dude, how's that feel?" He's like, "Bro, amazing." He goes, "Thank you so much. I can't even thank you enough." I go, "I think that was kind of the missing link right there." He goes, "Absolutely."
Yeah, actually,
That's
we do plan to open our third house on Park Street hopefully within the next 60 days, and that house will be for men with children.
Nice.
That is our next goal. There is no shelters for them. There is no domestic violence shelters for men that are escaping, and women are perpetrators of domestic
Oh,
violence
man.
as well.
I was-
I'm just going to say that's a real thing. So when men need to escape
You're
with their
talking about,
children,
so when we say domestic violence, it's physical or
Yes.
verbal?
I'm saying
Both.
both.
Both?
Yeah.
I'm saying
Both and all.
I'm saying they absolutely are. And if a man makes a decision to remove his child from a toxic environment, he should have a place to go. He cannot go to one. We do not have in our community right now a place where men can
Have sanctuary.
have sanctuary with their children. And so we are working diligently to create that, because men are good fathers. And when they want to be, I applaud them.
Yeah.
And those children deserve their
So-
parents.
Sometimes I feel that they're kind of they're pushed to the side, like
Well-
not only by the courts, but just society in general.
Right.
And that's one of the societal changes that we need to make.
I agree.
That's one of the societal changes we need to make
So when's it supposed to open up?
within 60 days.
Nice.
That's
Yes.
the hope.
So with support, we need support.
It'll
Yes.
happen. I don't doubt it.
With
So
support.
share with everybody some of your success stories, because I know you gotta have a
right.
handful at least.
We
Well,
have quite a bit.
We have quite a few. Actually, I'm really big into statistics. I know what the statistics are with other programs in our community, with other programs within our nation and within our state. Our success rate is currently, if you take 10 of them, 8 of them succeed.
Wow.
And we also don't have time limits on the time that they can stay with us. So we don't have 30-day restrictions. We don't have 6 months. If they need to stay with us for 2 years, then that's what they can do. We don't like to put that pressure on people. We have several. I mean, we could bring them on and tell them.
Well, I would
they
love
could
to
tell
have
you.
a couple of them on
Yeah,
to talk about your program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of theirs, we have 2 that are very dear to, I think, both
Superstar.
of us.
Did you adopt them?
Yes. That's the other
Consider
thing.
all of them.
We consider all of them family. We don't refer to them as our clients. We don't refer to them as our consumers. We don't refer to them as our residents. We do it in a technical term, but we refer to them as our family because there is no book, there is no workbook that's going to teach somebody the skills that they need. It's love.
Yeah.
It's love and it's mentorship and it's support and it's having somebody say, I believe in you. That's what makes people well. That's what makes people whole. And
sometimes you got to have that belief in them.
Yeah.
Hold that belief until they can hold it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So one of our success stories, I will not say her name out loud, but I will say that she had been to 4 different treatment facilities and shelters in our community with little to no success. I don't want to say she made no progress because she did, but not the progress that she needed to be able to independently live. She currently transitioned to our program. She's been with us March.
6 months.
6 months. During that 6 month time frame, she felt the same way that most women do. I got to go work at McDonald's, minimum wage job.
Right.
She's got children that wasn't going to work, right, to support her children. She returned to Delta College. She completed her AA. She is transferring to Humphreys University. She is working on her master's in public policy and then transferring to law school. She is the
like a
homeless
boss.
initiative advocate. She is a residential coordinator at our facility. She goes to the NAMI convention. She works with co-occurring clients in our community. She has spoken at city council meetings.
She's really cool.
Really cool.
I'd
She's
love
just
to meet
really
her.
cool.
I'd love to tour your place. I'd love to
Yeah,
come
oh yeah,
out and-
please
and-
do.
and
She's
check it out.
really cool, and not only is she really just a cool person, but she is a person that has reunified with her children successfully, has an amazing relationship with them today. She is also employed and has a full, takes 18 units in school and has a full-time job at a very reputable restaurant in our community. We have another young woman who has 4 children. This was not her first go around as well, had been in multiple treatment centers. She is also a residential coordinator. She is reunified with all of her children, 4 of them. 1 is still in the process. She is working 2 jobs, gets her children to school every single day, and she is now going to college. And so
she's working 3 jobs.
she's working 3 jobs and taking care of 4 children.
Wow.
And these are children that have been in foster care. These are children that have been in group homes at Mary Graham Hall. These are children with trauma. She is diligent in getting them the services and treatment that she needs. She's completed nurturing parenting.
Wow.
And she is a
amazing.
part of our team today. So, we do have some really amazing
Those are the
success
best
stories.
team members.
Yes, they are.
And I think there's a lot of successes too that are not, I guess sometimes you don't really see them as like success stories
Right,
in like
but
a
the
grand
little
scheme.
successes.
But like we've had women who unfortunately we have had to terminate their residency for they've had a lapse, they are not doing something right, they need to seek a higher level of care, it's just not a good fit. There's a lot of different reasons. And yet each and every time they're struggling, they call us. Right? Like they're not even a resident anymore.
Right.
And we've had them like show back up in the middle of the night on our doorstep. Like, I need to talk to Stephanie. Like, where's Deborah? Like, I need help and support. So I think that's a real testament to the types of connections that we're really fostering with people.
Because sometimes people, the grass isn't always greener, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're like, I'm going to go over here. And then they're like, dang, I screwed up.
Yeah.
Delancey House, are you familiar with that?
I am.
Delancey Street.
Delancey Street.
Yeah, you guys.
I was raised in San Francisco.
You
I'm
gotta sit
very
on that
familiar.
bench till you want to get back in. You know.
Yeah. El Dorado House in Stockton, California. There was a bench too that you had to sit on.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
There
pretty
was.
cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Delancey Street's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the little milestones you've seen these women make? I think that's important because we always look at. People always look at the end result. They don't look at the journey and the bumps and the bruises along the way. So I think it's important to highlight the little milestones, the setbacks, to say, despite all this, we still took home the gold.
We see a lot of milestones each and every day. There's I mean, there's times just someone.
Learning to use a coffee pot.
Yeah, I was going to bring
Yep,
it. Yeah.
exactly. I mean,
I was
of course,
thinking that.
they go and enroll in school and they go through the FAFSA process and they
That's
get
a
their
challenge
associate
right
degree.
there. I did it.
Absolutely.
Man.
Or they get a full-time job or a part-time job, or they just go to a job interview
Yeah.
that they've never had to do, and they're
Do you
scared to
role
death.
play the job interviews with
We
them?
do.
Sometimes.
Good.
But even, I mean, we've had women who, especially the ones with children, who, same kind of thing as your friend, they're like, I read to my child today, like for the first time ever.
Yeah.
You know, and they're
So
like,
rewarding.
I never even thought like they would like to read, and they do. And we're like, those are the types of parenting skills that you have to have, though. And they've never had good parents themselves. They've never been taught. They've never been encouraged to do those types
I wonder
of
if
things.
some women, business owners would come in and do mock interviews with your ladies. I think that's important.
That
The
would be
role
great.
playing to build that confidence
Right.
for that person to ask them that hard question in a safe environment. So
Right.
when you're in that moment, you're like, I got this.
I think some of the milestones too that other people may not think is a milestone, but I know for me it was a huge milestone, is to just hear them say out loud, I was raped.
Yeah.
They've never said it. And to finally feel safe enough where they can say, I was raped.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
And I realize now that rape, I've carried it. And it ruined my life. And it ruined my ability to be in a healthy relationship. It made it so that I didn't want to be close to my kids. It makes me scared to be touched. Just to hear those things come out of their mouth of where they can now address it. We have women say, I abandoned my kids.
Wow.
To say that out loud and to be able to take accountability
powerful.
and acknowledge that and say, and I'm not willing to do it again. One of the greatest things that I hear quite often is, they're my kids. I want them back. CPS took my kids. And I have to turn around and say, they're not your kids. You're their mother.
Yeah.
You're their parent.
Yeah.
It's your job. And so for them to be able to finally recognize, wow, she's
Perception.
right.
Right.
Changes
She's
their
right.
reality instantly.
Right.
Well, and many of them are not just able to verbalize that and admit it, but they're actually, for the first time, really willing to make amends and look within themselves. And they've come to us and said, what do I need to do to make this right? Like they're finally ready. And we see it every day. They're actually taking the steps.
Yep.
And so that's a really cool thing to see.
Yep.
That's cool. A buddy of mine, he actually owned your house before.
Really?
Years ago, yeah.
It's a cool house.
It's the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah.
It is actually. A lot of the girls, we've
was an
actually
old
had
church.
a couple of residents say, what does that window go to? And we're like, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's
It
a neat
it
space.
wasn't a church when he owned it.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy house.
Yes,
It
it is. That was our first house. And I actually moved into that house. Stephanie and I actually lived there.
Oh, really?
And so when I moved out, I decided, before I give my 30-day notice, we need to take a look at this. This is our,
Yeah.
we weren't going to call it Lily Pad Living. This is our Stephanie Sanctuary. And so I approached the owner and said, I have a business idea. And he got on board.
Nice.
And so then he owned other houses here in Stockton that he made available to us. So, I mean, it worked out the way that it was supposed to work out.
Cool. So how can the community support you? Because I know you ladies need all kinds of support. So
I
Really?
would say beyond the typical, hygiene products, bedding, twin size bedding, towels, women and children's clothing,
Diapers.
those things, diapers, wipes. Those are very, very useful for the women, especially those that come in with nothing or come in with a very, very limited budget or income. We've also started a scholarship program for short-term rental assistance. So when we do have a woman, let's say, who has maxed out her 30 days at the domestic violence shelter, someone who just fled with absolutely nothing, has been locked out of bank accounts, or was not able to work because of her abuse, in 30 days, there's no way that they can afford rent. There's
Yeah.
no way that they can probably afford diapers or those types of things. They may have just gotten out of jail and they need to have some time to actually go down to the HSA office and get food stamps or to get, cash aid or to get those types of resources. So in the meantime,
they're homeless
we don't want them
between point A and
homeless.
point
So if we're able to provide them with a short-term scholarship and say, we're going to pay 1 month of rent or 2 weeks of rent for you, provided by the funds raised by the community.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Then in exchange for that, they complete X amount of community service hours or volunteer hours. They volunteer in our clothing closet. They sort hygiene products. They do those types of things around the house to earn it. So it's not just a handout.
Right.
But that's the type of support we need. And it's not for us, but it's for them, because the resources are oftentimes just not there, or they need some time to actually get the resources. And so to be able to provide that to them is useful.
I work with the Delta Humane Society, and they're always looking for volunteers.
Yeah, well, great.
Okay,
We
we'll
have plenty of
send
people. I think, too, that the very important thing for the community to understand is that I know there's a lot of political controversy about giving people handouts. Mm-hmm. We don't.
Yeah.
Right? If we gave them handouts, we would teach them what they already know, that they can use the system.
You're giving a hand up.
Right.
I love it.
Right. So we
That's
do
what I always
have.
say. People need a hand up, not a hand out.
No, and at the same time, we're teaching them what it takes to get scholarships in college. Right? You write a resume. You write an.
So they have to apply.
They have to apply for it. They have to write an essay. They have to write what they're going to do. We have very strong restrictions on it. They have to do this many community service hours. They have to be out actively looking for jobs. They have to actively be enrolled in school. They have to actively be doing something.
So it's Delancey Street 2.0.
It's Delancey Street 2.0. Yes.
I love it.
Without attack therapy.
I don't know about that part.
Okay.
I've been at that restaurant a few times, and man, that food is good.
Right. But we do have, just like if you were to go to college and you were to get a scholarship or earner scholarship, we have a scholarship program that is in place that's outlined the same way.
Good, I love it. So how do people get a hold of you?
So they can contact us on our website, www.lilypadliving.com. We
It's in
are
the
on
show notes
Facebook.
Facebook?
Though our phone number and my email address is listed on our website as well. So
You
if
want to share with
anyone's-
people your phone number?
Sure. 209-990-9827. And my email address is pretty easy to remember. It's just my first name, Stephanie@lilypadliving.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Be good to people out there, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day.